That's to begin.
Good morning. Thank you so much for joining today. I always like to start with a little bit of the why, and in this case, it's why this webinar. Personally, I don't love being on camera and I don't love presenting. I spent 3 years in Toastmasters pre, during, and post COVID to overcome my own nervous giggle and the cold sweats that permeated every podcast appearance that I am on. And though my team has encouraged it, as they should, it wasn't until I had a topic that I was passionate about that I was really willing to do it. The subheader is the critical part to me about this topic, building to last. Creating a foundation is so critical to future success, and I don't feel like it's discussed enough. And part of that is quite simply timing. So as professionals, we are inundated with constant news and programming around everything that's new. In fact, it starts to seem like there's a new marketing paradigm. And with the advent of new tools and technologies around every single turn, like even as a marketer, I get overwhelmed. That being said, like most of you here today, I have to remind myself that the advancement of tools and technology may or may not lead to gains in productivity. However, understanding the underlying time-tested principles in marketing enables each of us to embrace whichever platforms are meaningful to our businesses and maximize the efficacy of those platforms. I don't like to be sold, and you may not either. As a marketer, I understand a lot of what's coming at me today is really a sales pitch to buy, buy, buy. I want to start at the beginning when we talk marketing. And I'm Bekah Carlson. Thank you so much for joining me today. Here's the basis of today's conversation. Number one, marketing does matter and can dramatically increase your personal or company profile, increase business credibility, market saturation, and transactions. It's actually the point of marketing. My second reason for why we are having this conversation today is a simple reality. And that's if people don't know what you do, they can't work with you. And finally, as I mentioned briefly about technology, it may be a little contrarian, but I firmly believe that there's no magic wand or magical tech stack that transforms marketing. As a company, we are fiercely technology agnostic. We've worked in many, many different software solutions that our clients use, and we don't advocate for any of them. They all require administration and strategy and actual effort. Together, these three whys are the why you're here today. Creating a plan is where it all starts. To create a plan, you have to think about what all goes into it. I always ask questions before I make recommendations. I've heard we were given two ears and one mouth for a reason. We have to assess where we've been, where we're at, and then make our clear path forward. This also provides within this planning the opportunity to create KPIs or key performance indicators with concrete goals and metrics for each of these areas. There are four areas that I like to look at. Audience. Woohoo! Audiences can be located on social media platforms, your followers, maybe your email software lists, subscribers, and your CRMs, your contact management systems, website traffic, even, especially if you've got calls to action on a website that have forms or things attached to them. And then there's some general information for visitor geography that is hopefully available within your analytics. Creating the baseline of whether these are the appropriate market recipients or if you need some audience work is where your KPIs come in. You can look at where these connections and lists are at and create goals around where you'd like them to be. Some examples could be for KPIs in that audience area, 5% more website traffic from my local area, or a 10% increase in members on my email lists, or 15% followership or connections on social media platforms. Those KPIs are the specific indicators that signal progress towards your broader business objectives. The metrics serve as your marketing compass to provide clarity and focus in a landscape that's often clouded by too much data. For long-term multi-channel strategies like social media, email, thought leadership, blogs, etc., KPIs are an essential metric and can include brand awareness metrics like reach, impressions, social media engagement rates that provide a picture of how effectively your brand is penetrating your target market, can include customer engagement, metrics such as time on site, click-through rates, bounce rates, post reactions, and in-person responses help gauge how well your content and messaging are resonating. Sales and revenue. Ooh. Ultimately, service-based businesses and physical locations need to focus on revenue. Tracking metrics from initial engagement to closed sales is critical for measuring long-term success. By identifying and tracking the right KPIs, you set the stage for continuous improvement. The goal isn't to chase every metric, but to focus on those that align with your strategic objectives. This focus ensures that your marketing efforts are always pushing in the direction of sustainable growth. Channels. Where historically and currently does your marketing go from a platform perspective? Most companies and individuals have different connections within each channel, as each channel indicates your audience's preferences. These audience members like outreach in different areas, which makes these channels, they're more like a Venn diagram than concentric circles. There may be some overlap, but likely you have characteristics that are distinct to every platform. So how are you reaching your target audiences now? Well, for most of us, it's an amalgamation. There are events and sponsorships, website, e-blast, social media, maybe even paid advertising. The KPIs that you can create around channels can be really simple but profound. Some examples, like for events and sponsorships, it could be identify which events provide attendee lists and either ask for lists from the others or stop sponsoring or speaking at them if there's not enough value long-term derived from your participation. For a website, adding content on a regular monthly basis to aid in SEO and AEO to attract more visitors can be an area where tracking the increased traffic could be your KPI. In the e-blast arena, increasing the list or modifying subject lines or opportunities for click-throughs, or even increasing or decreasing frequency can lead to the KPI development of like increased open and click rates. For social media, the recurring frequency of posts, the number of views, interactions, and click-throughs to additional locations can all be incorporated into your KPIs for that arena. When we look at paid advertising, KPIs can be conversion-oriented or can include frequency of how inquiries are derived from those ads are processed and bringing them into a real sales funnel. Those can be KPIs. Resources, my fourth planning area. If you're at a company, you may have internal resources that help with marketing. It could be a coordinator, an admin, maybe a full staff. You may also have access to external resources. When I was in-house, I had a PR firm that I worked with, a website developer, and a branding firm that eventually left, but they were the brains behind our Birtle mascot, which was a hybrid bunny turtle that still comes up occasionally with former work colleagues and company friends. Finally, your resources include the technology platforms that you're utilizing. Every company's technology stack is different. This could be HubSpot, e-blast software, a CRM, social media platforms, and analytics tools for the websites. What are they, and how are they being used? Goals in the resources arena may center around a plan to train an internal resource or implement your strategy to identify and hire an external resource, or to organize your technology stack. For some of us, it can be to use our technology stack more effectively. Sometimes there are so many tools that we're juggling that creating a goal around implementation of the tools is that next step we need to take. Data can powerfully inform decision making. If you can get websites or get analytics, sorry, from website traffic, social media, e-blasts, advertising, etc., it's worth the time to know where they're at, make sure you have access, and ideally track them on a spreadsheet. When we have conversations with clients around their full-scale marketing endeavors, or even just one aspect, starting and maintaining spreadsheets with data to track over time is incredibly helpful. But if you don't look at this data on a regular basis, you should include tracking and reviewing it as your KPI. One other piece around KPIs and these areas in which you're developing them, it's okay for them to be imperfect. And there may be some areas that are out of your control. Like as an employee, you may not have access to your company's website or the content therein. You may hate your company's social posts and not want to share them. And yet still want to be hyper-focused on increasing your own network. Whatever you have access and control to, however, you can create structure around it to keep things moving forward. You're going to establish how to look at data and make decisions, what works and what doesn't. What are the mini quarterly advances you can make in these arenas? And one thing I do want to point out is that as professionals, it's a good idea to chase substance. There's a class of metrics that we call vanity metrics. And I remember having this conversation with a local exercise studio just several years ago. They were really being pushed by their content creator to create a slew of these YouTube and social media how-to videos and to chase followers online. The problem was is they didn't have any online offerings. They had incredibly sophisticated machinery on location that couldn't be used in the videos because nobody actually even has access to that machinery. They can't even use it at home. What they really needed were 2 to 3 people a month to walk into their physical studio and take classes. An investment in a referral program for current attendees and local penetration was what was critical to their business. The mismatch of ultimate goal versus social metrics happens in service-based businesses too, and it's something to avoid. Is the best investment in your marketing dollars and program chasing eyeballs if you have a specific vertical that you're targeting that would be better if you were introduced to on a professional level? Those are considerations that you want to take in, that you want to think about as you're developing your strategy and your KPIs and building out that plan. The W's. When we create comprehensive marketing strategy, this is the chart we work from. Who, what, when, where, why, how. It's an incredibly simplistic way, but clear way to go through all of those marketing strategy pieces. From there, we build out that, and then we make what? A calendar. Calendaring marketing is what makes it happen. We think about the frequency in which each channel is utilized and just create a simplistic calendar that pulls it all together. What are we going to do on a daily or weekly basis? What are we going to do on a monthly basis? What are the other factors that come into play? You can start with this generalized calendar and then you can build it into an actual annualized calendar. So now when we talk about the strategy piece, there are a handful of pieces we want to talk about here around your messaging. This is general, but we want to start with clarity. If people don't know what you do, they cannot work with you, as I said before. You cannot assume that they know everything that you do as an individual or as a company. Part of clarity is creating simple, consistent messages that are easy to remember. When we talk about voice, well, every individual and every company have a different voice that is uniquely theirs and should have some continuity throughout the content that goes out. For example, my company's content is never sarcastic. It's always positive and uplifting. It reflects us. But we have attorneys who, no matter where their content is, website, articles, e-blast, social, it's incredibly formal. It's very compliance oriented. It fits within the appropriate voice of that profession and of that individual and of that company. Engendering trust happens when you use consistent voice and clear messaging. People know what to expect when they're hearing from you or seeing things from you. They see it, your audience is going to see itself in your content topics and your voice. Now, when we talk to this next column around branding, whether it's your personal brand or your corporate brand, ensuring you have a look is important. Think about like social media scrolling if you're a user. The picture or the video in the post is larger than the name of the person who posted it. It's what catches your eye. Canva has been the great equalizer in design. And like there are a couple of tips that we suggest if you're doing your own design work. Number one, select your like a consistent color palette. Uh, Readability is critical. There are a lot of lovely templates that have fonts that actually require work to read them. Assuming the words on the graphic are meaningful to the graphic, go for practical versus ornate. Um, let's see. My third piece around this is that pictures and videos of you will perform better on social than anything else. People like people, and we'll talk about that a little more later. And then website imagery should be consistent throughout. Tones and colors. If you like images, should be abstract and versus real. Like there are just elements of consistency that really reinforce the brand. And always consider your audience when using humor, because for some it is effective and for some it falls incredibly flat. From a formatting standpoint, there are a lot of different ways to convey a message, and they all have appropriate use cases. Consider the use case, create the correlative format. Finding your fundamentals is critical for all of us as individuals and as companies. What you do is one of your fundamentals. At CI, my company, Carlson Integrated, we do marketing. You probably knew that before you even got here today. As an individual, I do marketing. Within that is a subset of tactical efforts. Like when I say we do marketing, we do website development, we do social media messaging strategy and implementation of that strategy. We do pitch decks and investment memoranda. We do e-blasts. We do all sorts of fun stuff. So what we do is a fundamental that everyone should know. Another piece of is who we work with, and who you work with is likely a fundamental. It may grow and evolve, but it's still fundamental to your business objectives. We typically work with established company owners, but I have friends who typically work with CFOs or HR directors or real estate brokers. Knowing who you work with is critical to your long-term strategic success. Your approach is also a fundamental. How you look at business, how your company creates and executes processes that bring success to their clients, how you answer the questions others ask. These are fundamentals. And Of course, your contribution to the world around you is a fundamental. No company, no person is one-dimensional. Adding further dimension further engenders trust and provides additional forms for relatability and engagement. Involvement in organizations, whether they're personal or professional or your alma mater, those are great options here. Really great ways to recognize the breadth of your individuality. Evergreen. Each of us has evergreen topics within our businesses. Like this webinar topic, for example, it's always going to be important to build long-term marketing strategies. What evergreen topics allow is content authority that has longevity. Even if you're doing an op-ed or an individual piece, you can and should incorporate information that people will be looking for in the future, not just at this pinpoint in time. What you put out should be credible. If you're going to use AI to create ideas around it, that is a fantastic use of AI. If you were going to have AI write everything for you, just think about whether that increases or erodes your credibility as an expert. We often look in the marketing world as AI as the least common denominator, the most common information available. Well, that doesn't necessarily position you as an expert. Evergreen topics are germane. They matter in your business. They're also sustainable over time. It's not a one and done approach to a topic. You may have to update some aspects in 5 years, but whatever that topic is, it still matters. You should note that anything you put online can be searched and show up in search results, which means that it's part of the world's information encyclopedia and can be found. If you really want to be found long term, that's where a static website containing content is important, with SEO and AEO incorporated to maximize the exposure. But there's some other creative ways to do that. There might be online or print periodicals that welcome contributions in your industry. We have a litigation attorney client who writes a column every other month for a magazine. He has decades of articles that for that publication and other publications he's written for his law firm site, his individual site. All of these articles are online and increase the likelihood that when one of his core legal topics is searched, his stuff shows up. When we've talked about this evergreen piece, the aspect that kind of marries the idea of time sensitivity and evergreen is recurring, especially when you have time sensitive content that needs that you want to make sure that people are looking at repeatedly because it's continually time sensitive. The way to do that is this concept of recurrence. We get to work with DePaul on their real estate report. We've done the design and layout for it for several years. So the content itself is critical and important and time sensitive. But the brand awareness comes from the fact that it's sent out every single year. Constituents are able to track that data year over year and look forward to that data being released on an annual basis. So though that information is incredibly time specific, the distribution achieves objectives far beyond that data itself. I love recycling. Reduce, reuse, recycle, repurpose. Say it again, because if it's worth saying once, it's worth saying twice. Repetition aids in recollection. I have a colleague and dear friend who's a LinkedIn expert. Over the years, he's taken the helpful insights posted on LinkedIn as his insider view of the algorithm and as a sales trainer. and has assembled them into a catalog of books. He's used his websites over the years to drive individual consulting engagements, speaking opportunities, and book sales. It all works together. He has credibility and real life examples in his consulting. He has examples for his speaking opportunities. And who doesn't love the income of his book sales? Repurposing content, whether articles or blogs or infographics and charts, it reaches different audiences on your different channels. Because remember, they may overlap like that Venn diagram, but they're not the exact same people. And they're great opportunities to send people to another platform. When when we write a blog at CI, we post about it on social and send people back to the website. We add it to our newsletter and send people to the website. We've submitted our RSS feed of our blog to Provisors, which is a national networking group that I'm a part of, and they send out thought leadership articles from their membership base regularly. We do it because we've got an award-winning blog and we want to give our readers the chance to see the breadth of our company work on our website. All the things we do as a company would be crazy to include in a blog copy. So I've got to get them back to the website. So if they want to see what else we can do, they have the chance to do it. The one piece of work is used as distributed content and as a tool to draw people in simultaneously. So we're pushing it out and hopefully pulling in at the same time. Content strategy in a modern age. When we think about the changes most recently in AI and in the ability for people to use AI as their search tool, it changes from this concept around keywords to this concept around questions, because people are asking fully formed questions. So this is a really critical time as marketers and as representatives of our individual personal brands or of our corporate brands to think about what are the questions that people are asking about within our field. What are those areas where people are asking fully fledged questions, not just suggesting keywords? And then building those answers out online so that we can show up in search results in new ways than we ever did before. What do people ask about in your network? So are you paying attention to the questions that you're hearing around you? Are you paying attention to the questions that you could answer and how those questions are asked? These are really neat ways that technology is changing how we're approaching getting found and finding others that resonate with us. And when we pose those questions and we answer those questions, it just correlates with Google and generative AI's ability to find you, to find me, to find our companies as the solution to an answer to those questions. When we get into that execution mode, there are some things to consider. And the first is that there are best practices. So if you're using AI, to be sure to be vigilant in creating useful prompts and fact checking what you get back. I did have an instance where one of my clients, I'd written a bio for him after interviewing him, and he submitted it to AI. And it included some examples when I received it back from him. There were some examples of his success and the efficacy of the program he was offering. And I was excited. I said, "Oh my goodness, I had no idea. We didn't even talk about that. That's great." And he said, "Oh, yeah, that didn't really happen. It just made that up. We should probably take it out." Well, it's a good thing I was paying attention because he would have had a lie, like a complete lie on his LinkedIn bio after submitting it to AI. So you have to fact check. You have to read those words and make sure that they're representative of what you're really doing. Another piece around those channels and platforms is that it's their sandbox and we all just get to play in it. Google, social media platforms, they have parameters and things they treat favorably and requirements. And as much as we may dislike it sometimes, it's a reality we have to recognize and for which we must continually adapt. Hashtags, remember how big those were a couple of years ago? Remember how they've been basically gone now? Yeah, those are things that those platforms determine, and we just have to adapt to them. One element that we talk about with our clients, especially as it relates to those hashtags, is that we now have to replace those with something else. And that replacement is often in line of tagging, of identifying opportunities where you're seeing other people in other companies and actually tagging them to get that organic reach because it does not happen through hashtags anymore. When you think about direct outreach via email, there's adherence to CAN spam requirements, and there's some like technical aspects of sender verification that are coming into play with some changes even in those email platforms and how Google receives mail and how Apple allows mail to be shown on the phone. There are a lot of pieces that go into that. And so you do have to follow those best practices. The other piece I would love to go over is don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. And the reason this has come up for me in my career is that I used to have a boss who would stop me when I was striving for perfection on a marketing task. And he would remind me that 95% is still an A. Time is at a premium, and marketing can expand to take as much time as you allow. Allocate time for final review to make sure you don't have typos or glaring errors in what you're producing, but don't let the intricacies of design take an inordinate amount of time. I told you earlier this is going to come up again, and that's that people like people. Whatever your content on anything, any platform, any channel that you're doing any marketing, whether you're an individual or a company or an organization, the imagery and content that resonates through any channel is connected. People want to see other people, to engage with stories about other people. Every client we have ever had, whether they're consumer facing, whether they're B2B, whether they're highly sophisticated, whether they're really colloquial in their narrative, whatever those pieces are, in every single one of them, the best performance they ever have on social media on all platforms is people, if there are people. And of course, there's no better time to start than today. To that end, I want to make sure you know it's okay to start with a simple plan. It could be like, I'm going to gather whatever emails I have handy and send a newsletter of some sort twice a year. That's okay. Or I'm going to post on LinkedIn once a month. Or I'm going to look into 2 conferences to attend in 2026. The idea is to start. So a lot of the pieces we talked about today were pretty complex of building this full-scale marketing plan, and it can seem really big. But the reality is that it can really go back to picking one little thing and starting with that one little thing and then letting it grow and making your KPI to look at for some, like identify something else you want to do next month or next quarter. It's okay to start small. And finally, and I know I'm leaving a lot of time for Q&A, but I hope that's helpful to you guys. And I want to make sure because we covered a lot of ground today. The last piece of encouragement I want to provide to you before we open up Q&A is that when sales informs marketing, so marketing can point to sales, that's what supercharges marketing. So if you're leading a marketing department or you're in marketing or you're just in that arena and you don't have front-facing sales, try to get feedback from your sales team. If you're responsible for your own business and doing individual marketing, pay attention to how your message is resonating with your various audience that are meaningful, like the audiences that are meaningful to growing your business. And you keep tweaking as you go. And hopefully, the biggest piece you've seen from this is that constant improvement is makes a tremendous difference. And when we talk about those long-term marketing strategies, think about that long-term idea of that it builds over time. I'm going to go ahead and thank you all for being here. Really appreciate your time this morning and definitely want to open it up to questions. And I'm opening the chat. Sorry, it's uh, KPI. Veronica asked you what a KPI is. That's a key performance indicator. So that is something, it's picking out a metric that you're going to track. So it's very, let's see, it was like on an earlier page, but I think I skipped over it too fast. Hold on, let me go back here. Do. All right. It's simply like what your objective is and how you're going to get and analyze it and make decisions based on it. So it's just that key performance indicator, and it can be specific to whatever you're doing. So I can have a key performance indicator on whether on like for amassing a mailing list, for instance, the goal first quarter is to add 100 people to my mailing list. My key performance indicator that is that goal, and yet there are pieces that go into it. So there may be a plan that goes into achieving that goal, but the performance indicator is something that you can track. Like, did I accomplish this or did I not? I hope that's helpful. If there's a specific instance or an area where you'd want a KPI built out, we could workshop it if you want. Okay, are there any recommendations for yearly company updates or social media impact posts? Alberto, that's a great question. Uh, we try to do yearly company updates, but I think I need to dig a little bit more into that, is around whether your question is whether a company should be sending out some sort of annualized reporting and even like a newsletter or a narrative that comes out on an annualized basis. I think that's probably what you're asking. So I'm hoping that's correct. And the idea is, right, you want to keep people engaged and interested in what you're doing. If you aren't communicating with them, how do they know? How do they know how great, the great impact you've had? How do they know that things have been successful? No one can operate under those assumptions that everybody's paying attention to everything. We all have a lot of things coming at us. So clear, direct communication is really important and really worthwhile in keeping your audiences engaged. As it relates to social media impact posts, I would say the same thing, that ensuring that that the information is going out, that there's impact occurring. And from your own tracking and analysis standpoint, it might be helpful to identify some of those communication methodologies that are best for your audience. So does it resonate better with your audience to have an infographic? Or will a video story be more impactful? So especially we have a couple of clients in the nonprofit space, and we consider, take those considerations into play where they're not the formalized report we might have for a real estate or law client. Instead, it's beautiful and colorful, and there's a lot of visuals going back and forth that shows the pictures of how that impact is really happening and who has been impacted. by what they have done. So, Alberto, if I did not cover that in the method that you were asking, I do apologize profusely. Um, Lisa, how do you budget for marketing starting out? And what time frame? So there's a couple of ways you can look at that budget. There's obviously the financial budget or the time budget. And I think for most of us, when we start our companies, we're looking at our time budget because we may or may not have money to really pay somebody else to do it. And so the finite pieces of budgeting your um, the finite pieces of budgeting your time are certainly things that you need to figure. So the time frame, you definitely want to, it's going to take you a couple of hours to make a plan and to figure out what those categories are, right? To go through your audience and your channels and your resources and the analytics and what those are going to be and where they're at. So that is going to take a couple of hours really to sit through and think through and put it all out. And then after you're done mapping that out a bit, then we generally average 45 minutes to an hour for a social post. Some are more, some are less. It kind of depends on some of those pieces that go into it. But if you know that you're not going to have an hour and a half a week to spend on social and less than an hour is a better idea, like start with one post a week. Like recognize and factor that in. And I'm sorry, I can't keep up with the chat. Uh, um, if there are tactical like project pieces and components that you need, it may be enough to build a landing page. And often your website hosting folks will have a full, have that capability where you can DIY it if you need to. That's real, right? Like everyone starts somewhere. Um, and then marketing agencies, there's a lot of different kind of pricing that goes within that. I've talked to some companies that start at $30,000 for a website, and I was like, I've never met anybody who has that kind of money ever in my whole career. Um, but it does tend to start in a handful of like it's I I've seen things on signs that say $500 for a website. It's probably not the best idea to call some random person's phone number from a sign. So I would look for recommendations within your peer group. I think that's a really great place to start if there's something tactical that you need from a project standpoint, like just a thing. That's probably the best way to go around about that. And I'm trying to keep up with other questions in the chat. So I am gonna move on, Lisa, but I my contact information is here. So if you want to reach out, I'm very happy to just do a call and talk through that. Um, all right, inbound, Ahmad, recently heard about inbound and outbound marketing. Does the strategy for today cover inbound marketing only or inbound and outbound marketing? This is actually primarily outbound marketing because inbound marketing would be what happens when someone comes into comes in with an inquiry and what those processes are. And I touched on it incredibly briefly when we talk about what happens in that sales funnel and how that works as being a potential KPI, especially I think when it was in that analytics section, that building out a key performance indicator of what happens when somebody enters that funnel and how that funnel works for pulling them further in and getting to yes, that can be something that you build out a plan around. And it may at first just being like an auto response email, let's be honest, right? Like that may be the first thing and maybe the easiest thing of just what happens. But enfolding them into a journey beyond that can be like a quarterly goal, like build out the next 4 emails. That is your quarterly goal. Your key performance indicators, whether you've built out those quarterly emails. Um, I hope that helps from the outbound and inbound marketing standpoint. Uh, Angie, the name of my company is Carlson Integrated. let's see, pre-launch. Oh, interesting. So we're in the still in the pre-launch phase. What kind of marketing should we conduct? Probably, I would say focus group marketing, identifying your target audience pre-launch, and then assembling family, friends, people you know that meet some of those parameters around it and start bouncing things off of that, like that little focus group. That is definitely the start for making sure that your product service is resonating and the messaging is resonating. It's awesome to be able to do that before you even launch and to not just have to tweak as you go. Uh, let's see. Transportation and logistics. Ooh, I would love to talk about transportation and logistics. So I do think that there is going to be access to a video recording of this webinar, and there are sometimes I feel like there's almost too many resources out there for companies and yet not enough. It's such a strange dichotomy. I didn't even know about a lot of the resources that were out there when I started my company because I didn't know where to look. So uh, I know that the city of Chicago is doing a great job here, right? Like with this group, providing resources and ensuring that people have access to those resources. So um, I would say start right here with this group. That's, the best and most wonderful resource that you've got. And then also, I would say for me, I am like I'm a member of NAWBO, right? Like that's why I'm here, the National Association of Women Business Owners. And the cool thing about that is that that's part of I, as a WBE certified business, I have access to the WBDC, which is the Women's Business Development Center here in Chicago, which has tremendous resources. My county, Lake County, also has a wonderful resource group for new businesses. I think so much of it is that we don't know where to look. And so a lot of them I didn't find out about until I'd been in business like 5 years, which is too long to find out about those things. So I applaud you for continuing that quest for resources. And this presentation will be available as recorded. It will also, uh, I'm very comfortable if anybody wants to send out. Some of these pieces are parts of the plan, right? Like, here, you could fill this out, right? Like these are the pieces that we are already using in marketing to fill out. So all aspects that you would be very welcome to use as a PDF and take and repurpose if you want to or need to, whatever you need. I want to make sure that you've got what will really help you grow your businesses. All right, let's see. Contracts for my Sprinter and box truck. Um, Kashmir, I don't know if I can answer that one specifically. Um, or there may be some different specificity of what you're asking. So if you want to put a little bit more around that into the chat, that would be totally fine with me, and I'll see if I can answer it better. Let's see. Okay. Any recommendation on advertising slash marketing? Ah, okay. Yeah, you really do have some challenges around how, where you can market. And there are some really, there's some really great women's groups that I think could be beneficial to you that is a little less public marketing as it relates to that. I'm wondering though, if there could be without being explicit by any step, are there some like, are there content pieces around, case studies or narratives that can touch on while not getting, making some making issues or making platforms um, be mean to you? Because that's the horrible thing, right? Is like a social media platform can actually just cancel your account. You have no idea why, you have no choice. I do have a colleague who that happened to on LinkedIn. He got it back, but it took a year for him to get his LinkedIn account back. because he was connecting with people after conferences too much, too much. Uh, whole point of the thing. And it's for philanthropy. So it was horrible. Uh, so I recognize that you're being really smart and being cautious on how you're marketing it. But I love, but that self-care message is still something that's so important, and female empowerment. Those are really important concepts. So if you can build those out as your clear messaging strategies and allude to some of the things that are, and make it a little less overt, when you're talking through some of the other pieces of what you do, you may have more success and avoid some of those filters that can prevent people from seeing what you're doing. Because no one wants to spend a bunch of time building out marketing stuff and then have it not show up. That's it's the worst. So definitely err towards being more general and also unfolding stories of the importance of self-care, the importance of empowerment, all of those building into what you're talking about. Well, if there's anything that could be construed as explicit, keeping that a little less. And I'd consider if there are strategic partnerships from a marketing standpoint and business development standpoint. Like what are the best strategic partners? What are those best referral sources? Because there may be some ways to build out some joint marketing or advertising that stays in with all of the policies as well. I hope that's helpful. I think that's I hope I caught everything in the chat, guys. I really scrolling back up to make sure that okay. Yeah, I think I've caught everything in the chat so far. Please feel free, like if you have any questions. I love that the city of Chicago is doing this group. It's really exciting to me to learn about you guys and to see what you're doing. And I just appreciate so much the opportunity to be a part of it. You guys are the best. Thank you. And thank you for your, the kind words in the chat and the expressions of gratitude.
Did you see the two questions in the Q&A box?
Maybe not. Wait, there's a special Q&A box. Well, no, I just saw the ones in the chat. Uh, okay, so I'm looking at the Q&A box and I answered the one already through the chat. Um, but the other one is, will we be permitted to download the transcript after the webinar today? And I don't actually know. Is Can they download the transcript? Do you know?
I don't believe so, no. But this is being recorded and they can watch it on YouTube.
Woohoo! Yes. So there you have it. No transcripts, unfortunately, but YouTube, yes. I guess I should. Oh, look at that. I should probably put my contact information back up. That's what I was just realizing. Is that um, let's see. Dude, now it's big and happy. Yay. So if anybody needs anything, feel free to reach out. Again, just um, congratulations on recommendations on paid ads. Okay, we got 4 more minutes, so I'm going to use the time since we got it. Paid ads. Ooh, budget, budget, budget. Pay very close attention to your budget. It is very easy to spend big, big numbers uh, on that budget really fast. So from paid ads like Google, Facebook, and such. Google ads, what I have seen in my career is that I consider Google ads to be master's degree level knowledge in Google ads. It is a very, very tricky platform, and I have never encountered a business owner who wasn't in that tech space, who really felt like they had gotten their money's worth from the ads that they had placed. And part of that is just because it's such a complex platform. So typically I refer out Google Ads. We do not do them internally here at CI. I have three companies that I have met with and make recommendations for. And there's some pitfalls to watch for in this area. So I actually really glad you brought it up. The first pitfall, and you have to be very careful of, is make sure the pricing is transparent. So what some ad companies will do is say, "Oh, give me your credit card. It's $2,500 a month." And I actually talked to an ads company on behalf of a client who offered me that, who had offered her that. Well, when he and I had a marketer to marketer conversation, he actually admitted that 2250 was going to his fee a month and $250 was all that was going to ads. If you don't have transparency of pricing, like how that money is allocated from an ads management standpoint versus an actual ads number, like you got to know what those numbers are. And the second piece is control of data. You need to make sure that if you're going to do any of these ads pieces, that you are 100% the owner of every piece of data and that the management company is not. So as I have talked to dozens of ads companies over the past 5 years, like specifically within that time frame, of which only three would I ever recommend because they're honest about the pricing and it's transparent, and because the clients own that data. Because I don't want anybody stuck with any company that, "Oh, sorry you left. I guess we own all your stuff. Good luck. Have fun." And it's very common in that paid advertising world. So just that's a big piece of caution that I would recommend you kind of pay attention to. And then uh, like with any other kind of paid advertising, right? Like there's some benefits of using social and online paid advertising in that you can get immediate results and metrics. It's not like putting an ad in the newspaper and you're like, "Well, it says it went out to 400,000 people." Okay. It's different using the online digital ad space, but it remains to be something that is trackable. Oh, owning the data means that the ads account needs to be in your name, under you, 100%. They get access to it. They can create it, but it has to be created for you. You 100%. You're not a user on their account. It's your account and you own the data. So you can see every piece of work that they have done, what keywords they've been using, what phrases they've been using, the frequency and all of those things. And if you decide not to work with them, you still have that data. You still have it when they're gone because otherwise they just disconnect you and you can see nothing about what worked and what didn't work for the time that you had the ad set. I'm so proud there are people here who already own their data. Yay! Amazing. Thanks for doing it right. And um, just, right, be cautious, be smart. You guys are doing such a great job, and we are at time. I again want to thank you so much for coming and look forward to watching your journeys as you embark on your businesses. It's very exciting.
Thank you. If you are a part of the BACP Entrepreneur Certificate Program, your account will automatically be updated within 24 hours. Again, if you are a part of the BACP Entrepreneur Certificate Program, your account will automatically be updated within 24 hours. Today's webinar was recorded and will be available on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Chicago BACP. As a reminder, there will be no webinars for the remaining of the year as we celebrate the upcoming holidays. Thank you and have a great weekend.